pervy man in or out of sight. Everyone thinks he's just a fright. Day or night he's putting up a show. Calls himself Juno, when really he's James. And India's Jonathan. Susie, that's just Eddie. And Gigi's definitely George. Jane is John. Monroe's Ian, carrying on. Rixie, Rachel, or Paris, we'll just call them Dave. But they're all parasites, devouring women's rights, claiming them for their own. Oh, the parasitic man. Oh, he's a parasite.
Hi. Weird, isn't it? I'm wearing a crown and yet I'm not a queen. Crazy. I might wear a crown for a little bit, actually. It's quite a nice crown. Hello, good afternoon. How the devil are you? There is a little bit of a rumbling going on in the country right now. There's also Ramadan. I think that's how you say it. And Islam and Muslim is Ramadan. And councils are warning. Oh, don't droop. Councils are warning people, don't be upset about the noise, and to other people, don't make too much noise, like they do at Christmas. There's also footballers taking fasting breaks. I thought fasting was when you actually didn't eat, not when you didn't eat for the day, but there you go. So we've also got that going on. We've got the Ramadan lights, Ramadan Ding Dong. I think it was a song in Greece. Anyway, you've got Ramadan lights. In London, you've got all sorts of people wishing the best ones. The best councils wishing happy Ramadan are the ones that are doing LGBT History Month colours on their logos. That's particularly pleasing for me. Don't know about you. And then I saw some TERFs arguing with one of the most notorious sort of AGPs in the United States, who was saying, he didn't know what it was to be a mother. I thought, yeah, you don't know what it is to be a woman either, love. So, the whole world is insane. But the Ramadan thing I find quite disturbing, that everybody is sort of pretending. Look, I'd understand if 40% of the country were Muslim. I would. I'd hate it, and I probably would not live here anymore. But I'd understand if it was, but they're not. They don't represent that big of a minority at all. And yet we are pretending that, it's really, really important. Our children are going into mosques at schools and so on. I just put this on Twitter today, and I might extend what I actually wrote to include something else, which was probably the biggest reason that we've all turned into raging Islamophobes. And I want to make it really, really clear, because there's this argument going on at the moment about what is British. Now, I think I'm ethnically English, and that's because of the majority of my genes going back for the longest of times is English. And I don't very often call myself British. One moment, callers. I don't very often call myself British. I call myself English. And I think we should have a conversation about what is British, because let's say we elect a government that want to mass deport everybody that's not British. Is that going to include like second generation people that came over on Windrush? Really? Like, anyway, so I wrote this. Until the invasion of Islam on our streets, their calls to prayers in some cities, the faces of covered women, the special prayer rooms, we know they're not multicultural, fellas. The Ramadan lights, the Palestine marches, the consistent talk about Kashmir, Gaza, and Islam in our politics, the talk about anti-Muslim hatred laws, the trips to the mosque for school kids, the election of Muslim mayors up and down the country that then kind of make it impossible to talk about what's happening, the scandals involving predominantly Muslim-led councils, where there's shit tons of corruption, the migrant hotels, the NHS and benefit handouts to brand new arrivals, whilst our elderly and vulnerable are ignored. And the terrorism, so much terrorism, and then the 7 decades of gang rapes of our girls and some boys in this country. I think most of us were okay with immigration. I think we're okay if it doesn't sort of change the general look of our town. Like if I lived in a town of 20,000 people and all of a sudden 4,000 Polish suddenly turned up and everything was turning Polish, even though they are a lot closer to us in culture than, say, some people from Afghanistan, I think we'd be quite upset. I think, like in places in Ireland, where some of the children can't get into the local school where their parents went, and their parents' parents, and their parents' parents' parents, and newly arrived asylum seekers and migrant children are given preferential treatment. So sometimes, even in like rural Ireland, you have a class of majority non-white children. So I think we're all okay with welcoming people. We like we do like the takeaways. We like the different cultures. We like to feel like we're a really tolerant, wonderful people in Britain. We like to think that, like where I grew up in Somerset, after the Second World War, loads of Italian prisoners of war stayed. And so we had like Italian delicatessen, and we had one of the older women helped get people out of national service. They were the Poetis, and I lived next door to an Italian restaurant, and we had, there was the Italian barbers, there was the Italian chip shop that was like one of the best chip shops in the town, and so we had a really happy experience with accepting people, and those people were really grateful to bring some of themselves, but also to become British. They were happy to live in Britain, but they also really were happy to be Italians living in Britain, and they would have probably called themselves Italian. It's only recently that you get to call yourself British, and I'm pretty sure the second generation, who often had stronger regional accents to try and assimilate than the like local people, they probably would have still called themselves Italian. And maybe the next generation probably wouldn't. And once, the generations mixed and maybe the Italian boy married an English girl, um, they might call themselves British, and they might say, my mum's English, my dad's Italian. And we all accepted that, and that was great. We really enjoyed the tapestries of other histories woven into ours. The sharing of other cultures, the sharing of food. Oh, what was it like in Italy? And did you do this? And oh, in England, blah, blah, blah. We loved our country enough to share it. And we felt like we were giving people the gift of Britain, England, this wonderful place, our tolerance. Aren't we so lovely? And many of us have people in our lives who you would look at and you would instantly say, they're not English. They haven't been here for like 200 years. The color of their skin says that they are not, their ancestry is not here. And we would consider them British. The guy that, like, from my childhood, there was an Indian nurse. She very much was Indian. But then there were children that had the same color skin as her in my school, not very many, who were British. It's almost the way you walk. It's the phrasing. It's the way you talk. It's the things that you think are important. It's a shared something. But I don't believe for one moment that many of us who are quite fearful of the mass migration of Islam into this country feel the same about other cultures and the immigration of those. Now, I'm not including cultures where women are discarded, but fundamentally, I think the problem is Islam and the threat of all of this tolerance, all of the tolerance of people with different colored skin, that most of us don't even think about. We don't even think, are they British? They just are. The local fish and chip shop where I live is run by an Indian family. I don't even think for a moment that they aren't English. British, slightly Freudian. that they aren't British, because they just are. And I can't. I really am very frightened about the backlash to the dominance of Islam on our streets, of people praying in the street, means that we're going to have less tolerance right across the board for immigration. And I just don't think that is the way we should do it. I think we ought to have a really strict immigration policy that means you can come here, and until you are a net positive to this country, you can't get citizenship. You can't stay. And maybe we have an amnesty on the people that we begged to come here. So the people that were in the former colonized countries, I think the reason that we welcome them is we share some collective guilt about what we did to those countries. And I think that's probably quite right, within reason. But that would be that generation. So I certainly wouldn't want to see 60-year-olds being carted back off to a country that they don't know, or their children. But I do think if you don't speak English, if you've made no intention to integrate, if you've lived here on a life of benefits that your parents, grandparents didn't contribute to, then I'm quite happy to have a reset in this country. But it's this idea of Britishness, I'm not on board with. I think it takes many things, whether it's British passport, whether it's a British way of living, whether it's a tolerance. I don't think you have to be. I don't think you have to be Christian, otherwise I'm not British. Um, so so my message is Islam colonizes. It does so with every incremental thing it asks us to do for it. So whether it's the anti-Muslim hate crime laws, whether it's some practicing Muslims in our court, whether it's practicing Muslims in our police, whether it's a Muslim network, whether it's Muslim councils, whether it's taking our children to go and see what a mosque is like, whether it's World Hijab Day, if your school is doing it, public displays of prayer, which I think is always a show of strength and power, whether it's not being able to talk about things because it's a Muslim thing, so you don't feel you can criticize it because you're worried that someone's going to accuse you of something. Even the fact that women wear hijabs in this country, that sets them apart. Like, you walk down the road, not all Muslim women wear them, obviously, but those Muslim women that do wear the hijab, they're basically saying, we are not the same. And I would agree with her. We are not the same. But that very much is, we are not British. We are not involved in your culture. We have one of our own, which is far superior and important to us. And I just want to make sure that we're all united in that. What we don't start doing is we don't start looking at other people and saying that they're not British. Because I think that's quite frightening. And maybe we need to have a conversation and consensus about what it actually means to be British. And you can meet some of the women that come to Let Women Speak who aren't white women. And you cannot for a moment think that those women are not British. You just can't. So there's people, I'm going to address some of this because I think it's really frightening where we're going. So, okay, so this person says British is about heritage. It's not like a bit of paper like the GRA. Quite right. So what about the child whose mother is Scottish and father is half Russian, half Nigerian? Is that child British? What about if that mother is from Ireland and she's half Irish, half Polish, and the father is from India? Like, are they British? They're not English, but are they British? Is Britain a shared do you have to have heritage as in generations of being British, or can you come to this country, make a positive contribution, have children, knowing that maybe your children's children will be British? Like, is it color of skin? Is that what it is? Because I just don't know where we are here. What about two people whose grandparents came over in the 60s, and I don't know, some grandparents were from Jamaica, the other from Nigeria, so the grandchildren are black, but they've all been here for 3 generations. So somebody's saying, "When did we turn into America?" Can I move to China and suddenly become the Chinese? No, I can't. I can't move to China and become Chinese. 5 generations. If I just continually marry if all our generations marry white people, no, we won't be Chinese. We won't be looked at all as Chinese. So, um, yes, you do. Do the same for any other country. I just think it's gonna be racist. And I genuinely thought that when we talked about ethnicity, it would be I'm English, but I'm also British. Um, yeah, I just can't do it. What about someone mixed race who's half Polish, um, quarter Polish, quarter Jamaican, quarter English, quarter French? Someone here saying I've lost the ability to tell the truth. I always thought British was a nationality, um, and a nation is made up of the people within it. I didn't realize that the nation had to be. I discussed this the other day about this, and I don't know if I'd be happy if white people were a minority, but then my grandchildren could not be white. Like, would it still be Britain if everybody was mixed race? Yes. Um, so I mean, maybe we'll have to revisit this. But my gut reaction to this is that if I if my husband was black and his parents had been here for 2 generations, then our children would be British. So, anyway, my, VK Gargoyle says I'm making no sense at all. Um, and somebody else says I should worry about, um, white English being a minority. Well, I think it's worth exploring and asking the questions, but my gut reaction to all of this is when I see people saying about deportations, and obviously immigration into a country only works if it's a minority integration, and they assimilate. Uh, it's like saying all Australians are European. Oh. um, my mum was Italian when she came over to England before World War II. Yeah, this is it. I mean, I just I don't know if I can do this kind of weird identity stuff because it doesn't make any sense. Somebody 2 generations British who behaves I and supports this country and has no other claim to any other land, who maybe only has a British passport, you can't say that they're not British. It's, it's mad. It's just that's not British. Um, English, fair enough. Look, I'm on board. You can't be English unless you are English. You can't be Welsh unless you're Welsh. You can't be Scottish unless you're Scottish. But I am English. I love being English. I'm very proud. I would call myself English over being British. Because the British bit, I'm not Scottish, I'm not Irish, I'm not Welsh, but I am English. So anyway. I just wanted to say it because there's these new arguments brewing. And I'm thinking, do we really want to get to the point where somebody who's lived here 60 years with a broad Bristolian accent, we get to question their Britishness on the basis of the fact that they're black when they've never visited anywhere else, and they absolutely love their city where they were born, and they've contributed to the community, and they've integrated and assimilated like they were born here. Yeah, just can't do it. Charles Hart says, "Nobody's English in my family, since 1822." My husband's in the Doomsday Book, so not him, like his name. And I am very dull with my DNA. So, anyway. Well, that was more controversial than I thought, but I thought it was quite I am fundamentally against Islam. I think Islam is a corrosive force wherever it goes, and some Muslims will pretend that they are not on board with it, and yet you know as well as I do, if all hell broke loose tomorrow, that Muslims are Islam first. So just want to say, right. On that note, just had a message from one of my children. I better go, but I just thought I'd help. Someone said black is not English. No one said black was English. They said British. I do think there has to be a difference between. Otherwise, nobody's American unless you were born unless you're indigenous to the Americas 500 years ago. Is that how we're going to work? Crazy. Okay. I'm going to leave you with this. Letting women speak. Speakers Corner is going to be the 1st of March. Do come. Do come. It's going to be interesting. For everybody else, I'm going to go make pancakes because I'm culturally Christian. So we're going to have pancakes for dinner. So if you can talk about things that are a little bit difficult, then I think we can win. If you can say the hard stuff, so we can all find common ground, then I promise we will win. And Shrove Tuesday. Happy Shrove Tuesday. And do you know what else we're going to win? Well, because I never lose.
We stand on the edge of a whisper, our voices trapped deep and so low, but the words now rise like the oceans and the sadness that only we know. Woman, adult, human, female, not hard to define, but they twist and turn, they blur the line. Women's dignity discarded, our rage begins to build a tidal wave they can't conceive. Let women speak, let the truth ring clear. We've been shouting, but they refuse to hear. Breaking the silence. let the words fill the ether, hour by hour. And as her voice rises, she finds her power. At the top of her lungs, she screams, she's a man. This is our space, it's where we stand. No more shadows, no more disguise. Let the fire burn, no compromise. Let women speak, let the truth ring clear. We've been shouting, but they refuse to hear. Breaking the silence, breaking the spell. We are the women. We're rising. Let the truth ring clear. We are shouting for all these years, and you chose not to hear. Let women speak clear. Let women speak. We were shouting for all these years, you chose not to hear. Let women speak. Let the truth ring clear. We've been shouting, but they refuse to